What's up, Vankers?
Hello, Vankers.
Are you ready to take the red pill or the blue pill?
What will it be, Vankers? A life in hiding, believing what you've been told, or a life
The
of
Total
freedom?
Wolf.
Yeah.
The Total Wolf is the genius behind Mercedes.
Or the truth that I, Ross Braun, am Morpheus.
Woo! My God, can I just say something, Brian? I haven't been feeling well. This is the best documentary I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's
People
so
say
good.
we're negative. People like, oh, you guys are so negative.
Right.
Like when I see something that just slaps,
Yeah.
I will take my hat off. This was the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, we're negative because there's things to be positive about, and then the antithesis of those things that we're positive about, we're negative about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to just being blankly positive about everything, we're really
Yeah.
positive about certain things, and then as a byproduct of being positive about those other things, the only natural conclusion is that you have to be negative about other things.
Otherwise, you're just a disingenuous fuck.
Yeah, otherwise you're just not you're just kind of taking no stand. You stand nowhere, you know, but like, so, you know, it's like we like Ross Braun. And if you like Ross Braun and believe in Ross Braun, then you might not like Total Wolf. You know what I'm saying? And this was, and today was just a further example of that. Venkers, we're talking about the Braun documentary, Braun the Impossible Formula One story, brought to you by none other than fucking Keanu Reeves, dude.
Wow.
Keanu.
It's so funny, Brian. We were just talking about how, like, you know, actors get trapped. They try to slip in. They try to adhere to what it is to be a movie star.
Right.
They're like character actors.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh God, well, they were so good before they became movie stars. Then they became movie stars, and then they had to become cookie cutter. But then you realize, like, then you look at a guy like Keanu Reeves, and you're like, wait, this guy's a huge movie star, and he's so weird.
He's so weird.
And he's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got to say, he was so good in this.
Yeah, he was hilarious in this. He was good and hilarious.
I loved him, Brian. And by the way, he acted more in this than he ever does in any of his movies.
That's so true.
Like, he was chewing the scenery.
Oh, yeah, he was hamming it up.
He was gobbling it up.
Yeah,
He was loving this so he loves doing this so much more than John Wick. It's crazy.
Him, like, asking, like, what must that have felt like in this was, like, more emotion than I saw him in when he got his dog killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was like, and then you told him to go fuck themselves, right?
Yeah.
Right? He never, right, you kill his whole family, he's never that upset on screen.
Right. No.
He was having, and by the way, as a director, terrible. Leading the actors much, the line delivery much.
Truly, like a heavy-handed parent at the dinner table, being like, "And you're doing very well, right, Jonathan? tell my sister that, because I'm competitive with my sister about you. My kid's doing better than you."
But counterpuntal to that,
yes.
Like the counterpoint to that,
counterpuntal. Holy shit!
Maybe counterpoint to that. Maybe
no. Don't stop yourself. Counterpuntal.
But what's so funny is the reason. Usually, I get annoyed when the host or the director, or wasn't the director, but I usually get annoyed when the filmmaker puts their dick in there too much.
Right.
Like in the Beckham.
Yes, sure.
With Fisher Stevens.
Yeah.
It's like, look how clever I am. It's like more like, look at me, I'm clever.
Right.
It was just, you could tell it was just like enthusiasm.
Right.
He was adding enthusiasm to it.
Yes. This documentary is a beautiful combination of both of our worlds, because it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, both of our favorites.
Yeah.
And a documentary about Formula One that kind of undermines everything that Total Wolf is about. So it's kind of the perfect meeting point for me and you. But
it was made in a lab.
It was made in a lab for us, but I think like the beauty of it was that it wasn't him trying to be clever. It wasn't the documentary wasn't clever. The documentary was just very straightforward, and he's talking to it's Keanu Reeves talking to all these kind of like very dry British motorsport
But the cast
guys.
was amazing. It was the Pulp Fiction of F1 casts.
Totally, but he was just trying to imbue each moment with like, come on, like that must have been really hard, right?
Yeah, but it's crazy that he's like in this world, he's like Joey Pants.
Wait, who's Joey Pants?
Joey Pants, the guy from The Matrix.
Oh yeah, right.
He's like, and then bada bing, bada boom, and they're like, in most worlds, Keanu Reeves is the dry one.
Right. Yeah,
but here he's like, come on.
Right.
He's more animated than
Yes.
Nick Fry, CEO of
Right.
Braun.
Well, in most movies, and most actors are kind of like Keanu Reeves is like a stoic Formula One guy compared to most actors. But now all of a sudden, it's just a further proving of like how you behave is so indicated and so derived from your environment and who you're talking to. Okay,
It's all relative. It's all relative.
It's all relative. So let's get into this thing. But before we get into this doc and 2009 and Braun and FOTA, we got to thank our daddies of the pod. And for a great year that it was. It's the new year. Matt, this is the new year episode. People are going to be listening to this on the first day of 2024. You're bringing in 2024 with the red flags. We couldn't be happier. We're especially happy for our daddies of the pod. We got to thank Kayla, Robin, Jordan Texera, Jay Lingle, Spencer Grieve, Javier Mera, Sheila Valeri, Chandler, Luana Galbano, Ali Santana, Carla, Juarlo, Kimberly, Huelen, Alonso from My Face 69, Donya Janad, Jimmy, Mohammed Patel, Kimmy, sponsored by Mommy of the Pod, Hollister 584, Liv Lot, Cat, Future Dog Tordion, Steph Grossi, JB Fresh, Laura, Emily Gillenwater, Cody Hull is my F1 daddy, Branch W, Keep Up the Signs Hate, Hunter Scruggs, Salmonella, Mozzarella, I'm a Leclerc fan, and yes, it hurts, Jay Kess, Sigma Alonso for president, George Russell is evil Peter Parker from Spider-Man 3, Matt Edwards is always right, and our newest daddy, I wish I was Max and Danny's love child. Thank you, daddies. And if you want to become a daddy of the pod or you just want to join the fucking resistance, go to patreon.com/TRFpod and be a part of something in 2024. Start off the new year right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk Braun. Let's talk 2009. Let's talk this doc. Let's talk Jensen Button. Let's talk Rubens Barrichello. Let's fucking get into it.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
So, how much did you feel like we obviously knew that 2009, the Braun season, you know, we were aware of it, but like what surprised you about this doc? What did you know going in, and what did you feel like were some of the things that you took from coming out of it?
I knew the bare bones of everything. Like I was still like blown away by the emotionality of it and the ins and outs and the machination. I didn't know all the wranglings and how, you know, by the bootstraps it was and all that stuff. And they really tapped into the emotions of it.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about Rubens Barrichello.
I'm obsessed with Rubens Barrichello now.
By the way, I was obsessed with all of them.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with all, like Jacques Clear.
Yeah.
Rubens' engineer.
Oh, obsessed with him. Obsessed with him. Yeah.
I was obsessed with so many of those guys, but I knew that the team was in trouble. Ross Braun took it over for $1 or £1.
Yeah.
And then they did this Hail Mary. They had this, you know, piano key necktie.
Right.
But it was all about like, but then everybody else caught on.
Yes.
And it was all about, could they hold on?
Yes.
That was sort of the arc of that. but everything, but the Foda stuff and Bernie Ecclestone being evil and
I was aware that was like I just didn't realize how serious that was. That in 2009 Formula One, like the teams almost just was like, fuck this, I'm starting my own thing. I'm doing my own thing, which is what happened in IndyCar, right?
Yes,
not exactly, yes. but there was a split. There was a split. And then all of a sudden there was the Indy Championship, and then what was the other one?
Kart. It was Kart.
Kart. It was IndyCar and Kart.
It was all the teams. So it was basically for them everything is about the Indy 500.
Yes.
For F1, it's all about the championship and the league. So So basically, all the good teams left IndyCar, and then Indy 500
stayed in IndyCar.
IndyCar, obviously, and that was how they'd split. But well,
it's interesting. It's interesting watching all that stuff that happened because right now there's all this tension between the FIA and F1 again. You know, this was like a time of a bunch of tension between the FIA and F1. What's fascinating?
No, but actually, I think it's different now. It's different now because I think the teams and F1 are together,
right,
against the FIA.
Against the FIA.
Back then,
it was
F1 and the FIA.
Right.
Teams. It was different. It was not the same.
It's so interesting, like the timing of Braun, and I feel like this whole thing couldn't have happened. It was this perfect. It was this perfect storm, this cocktail of things happening that like made this season what it was.
And I think one of the things that kicked it off, according to my favorite, and I've been learning about Ferrari, one of my favorite guys, in history, and I was confirmed in this documentary. How good is Luca?
Luca Montemazzolo is. I'm so obsessed with this man.
He is literally the greatest. He was the greatest interview in that whole thing. He was his looks, his size, like he was like Braun. Just every moment he could have been gracious. He wasn't.
Right.
Any moments he could have.
Yes.
They asked him about the budget cap.
Yeah.
When they asked him about a budget cap, he goes, if you don't have the money, you know, there's always Formula 2, Formula 3. You can go go-karting.
Right.
I love this guy. I've done research on this guy.
Yeah.
He is literally aristocratic. Like he's royalty. And basically, he was best friends with the Agnelli family.
Okay.
The Agnelli family runs Fiat.
Yeah.
So he was a protege of Daddy Agnelli.
Yeah.
And when Fiat took over Ferrari, he was like, "You're going to be Enzo's apprentice."
Okay. Yeah.
So he was Enzo's apprentice, and basically, he was very important to Ferrari when he was young,
right?
Because he was the only person who could speak frankly to Enzo, because Enzo couldn't tell him to fuck off because he represented Fiat, who owned a stake in Ferrari, and he was young, and he was the guy that was like bringing in. He's featured a lot in a documentary about Lauda.
Yeah,
like he was the guy who brought in Lauda in the 70s.
Yeah,
and then he left, and then Luca's the guy who took over when Enzo died.
Okay. Yep.
But Luca is like Enzo's really successor.
Yeah.
But he's really cool. Honestly.
But he left. And now he's gone. He's not at Ferrari anymore.
Well, he's old now. But
he's 76. Younger than our president. So I don't know. They made this documentary this year. He seemed pretty fucking sharp to me. You know, I was like, this guy's gone. That's well,
there's
why.
Another Agnelli that runs it now.
But does he have the same pace as Luca? That's my question.
Luca, I love him so much.
Well, so I think we should give. I think there are some people that have seen this documentary, but there's also some people that probably haven't, who are coming in a little bit blind. So I think we should give an overview of like what the documentary was about. The 2009 year, and just the vibe of the whole thing. So. It's 2009, and I think it's such an interesting. There's so much interesting, series of events that led to Braun.
We had the crash.
Right. The most real is the 2008 the financial collapse. The 2008 financial collapse, the housing market crash, and Honda, who had been in F1 for a few years in a pretty shitty way, not doing great. It's so funny. Honda is such an interesting player in F1 because like. They have it's like highs and fucking lows. I mean, it's just like they're all over the place. Like right now, it's like the Honda gives engines to Red Bull. Like they're the greatest things ever. But when you think back on like when Red Bull made that decision, just based off of pure reputation alone, like Honda wasn't exactly.
Disaster.
It was they were a disaster.
But they killed it with McLaren in the 80s.
Right, exactly.
So they've had like highs and lows.
Yeah, they killed it with McLaren in the 80s. Then they had their own team, which was a fucking dumpster fire. Then they were with McLaren in the mid 2000s in the Alonso days, and that was a fucking
GP2
disaster.
engine.
GP2 engine, and now they're back, and now all of a sudden they're like the hot kids on the block.
No, but then they win, and then they're like, we're leaving. Actually, we're going back to actually we're going to be at Aston Martin now. It's like, what do you do? Why would you leave?
I know it's very weird that they left. They make weird business decisions when it comes to F1. They just don't know like how they feel about it. They just like can't like
exactly.
They're like your friend who like is always getting back with their toxic ex, and it's just like
they have commitment issues.
Or they keep breaking up with someone who you're like, they're just good for you. What are you doing? Like, just stop. Get out of your own head. Like, F1 is good for you, Honda.
And Yuki is the child is just damaged.
Right. Yes, exactly. So it was the 2008, the crash. Also, Ross Brawn, who had left Ferrari. Ross Brawn, who, the name is thrown out a lot. You've heard of Braun. We've talked about him. What's the vibe of Ross Brawn?
Can I just say one thing about him?
Yes.
Everyone talks about how he's so cuddly looking. It's like, he looks cuddly.
Yeah,
but he's actually a killer.
Right.
That's everyone he says. He looks so psychotic in Team Kit. It's crazy.
Yes, dude.
Whenever he's in the gear and the hat, he's huge.
He's enormous.
He's enormous. He looks American. You have to be a lithe European to wear those clothes.
Right. Yeah. He's a big, he looks like he came from the mountain.
He looks like he should be an offensive coordinator with a headset.
I guess, but he's also so nerdy. Like, he's this big guy, but he's so nerdy, and he's so nerdy looking.
Yeah. He gives a little Otmar vibes.
Right. He's kind of like Otmar's cousin, who's like, just like, is bigger in every way. Bigger brain.
But could beat up Otmar, for sure.
Could beat up Otmar. Yeah, he's, like, when he's sitting on the couch with Keanu Reeves, like, the couch is so low, his like, shins, like from his knee to his ankles, is so tall that I'm like, this guy like can't even sit.
They're both too big for those couches.
They are both too big because Keanu's big too.
Keanu's not a small guy either.
Yeah. But he's Ross Brawn is just, I mean, he has a long motorsport career. He's British. He's from Lancashire. And he was with Benetton. He was with Benetton back in the day. He helped with Schumacher, and then he was, he won championships with Schumacher. He went to Ferrari. He was the chief technical officer of Ferrari, and was really like one of the brains behind the Schumacher dominance, like one of the main components of that. Leaves Ferrari after 10 years. He's like, it'd be nice to leave after 10 years. It'd be nice. It's 10 years at Ferrari.
And then he tells Luca, this is why Luca's mad.
Yes.
Luca, because Luca in his amazing accent, he goes, he tell me he wanna fish.
Yeah. Right.
He wanna go a fishing.
Yes.
The son of a bitch, he tell me he wanna fish.
Right. Yeah.
And then he says, he goes, it's a disaster for my art.
Yeah. Yeah, because Luca was like, he was like, if he wanted to stay at Ferrari, I would give him whatever he wanted, but he wanted to fish. He says he wanted to fish. So I let him leave. Next thing I know, he's a team principal at Honda. What the fuck? Yeah, so he gets offered a promotion, a la, like when, this happens, like, I mean, it happens like a lot in at the NFL. Like an offensive coordinator becomes a head coach the next year. Sometimes they can do it, and sometimes they can't. We saw with Binotto, who was like a technical guy at Ferrari for years, and then all of a sudden he gets moved over to team principal. It's a whole other bag. But he moves over to Honda. Honda's a shit show, but there's a big reg change coming up after 2008.
And Braun smartly is like, he's doing.
Yes.
It's like tanking for the draft pick.
Yes.
It's like, don't even worry about 2008.
Right.
We're going to put all our eggs in this reg change. And apparently no one was thinking like that at the time.
I mean, that's what he said. He said that in the doc, and I was like, I doubt that that's really true, but like, okay, it works for the narrative, works for the doc. But he basically put all of his eggs into the reg change basket. And what's interesting is that, and the reg change was that they wanted less downforce on the cars in order to promote, racing, good, closer battles, and safety as well. Because if the cars are too lit, then it gets dangerous out there. But they say in the doc, basically, they're in the meeting, they're trying to figure out like what's the car going to be for next year. They're looking through the regulations. Martin Brundle says you read the regulations twice. Once to find out what the rules are, and the second time to see how you're going to get around them. And there's this guy, like a junior guy at Honda, who like raises his hand, and they show this in the doc. They have like the young, like, faceless engineer just like raise his hand epically, like, hey, I have an idea.
And they had the guy.
They had the literal guy. No, they had the literal
guy.
Yeah.
But they did a reenactment too, didn't they?
Well, they had him literally raise his hand like in the interview chair.
They made some wild cinematic choices in this that I love.
But he suggested this thing, the double diffuser, which you've maybe heard, and essentially the diffuser is the part on the rear of the car, and it fucking diffuses fucking air, dude. and
they thought, what if we doubled it?
What if we did it twice, dude? So anyway, but there's that, but then also, while this is when they're still Honda, what happens after that is like, this is in the summer, like at the end of 2008, they're developing this car, and then the financial crisis happens. And then Honda, as we were, saying, is like, let me get the fuck out of it. Like, we can't. This is it. We're out. We can't do it.
Right. Nobody's buying cars right now.
Nobody's buying cars right now. We can't afford to keep this up. The team sucks anyway.
Yeah.
And this part I didn't really know. I didn't really understand. Like, I'd heard Braun bought Honda for $1, right? I'd heard that this famous deal. But the specifics of it, I didn't know, like, were, that essentially Honda was like, we're out. But they still had, that's all this, like, contractual shit that they're obligated to do. They still have to, like, it's going to, just to close their doors, it was going to cost them $100 million.
That was the craziest thing. It's going to cost you $100 million to go out of business.
Yeah. When this pod ends, Matt, it's going to cost $100 million. Yeah. So there was this mad dash to see like what were they going to do, and it was really Braun and Nick Fry, who was the head CEO. The CEO of the operation, that were like trying to figure out what they were going to do. They were trying to get other teams involved. They were alluding to all these like shady players that were like trying to take advantage of the situation and talk to Honda and all this stuff. And ultimately, basically, Braun convinced them that like, hey, it's going to cost you $100 million just to close your shop. He was like, just give it to me for $1. I'll keep it going. And it'll only cost you $90 million.
Yeah. Right. You'll save $10 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to pay out your staff. I guess like when you think about like why it would have cost them that much, I assume it mostly because of staff, right? Like people are on contracts, like a severance
People are on
thing.
contracts. I think maybe just the legal wrangling of
Right.
tying off everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, because the people that were the people that were apparently like offering to buy Honda were like they wanted Honda to pay them to take it off of their hands because they were like,
you know what it also? Oh, you know what it is? It's also they probably had a lot
Yeah.
of debt. It's probably taking on a lot of debt.
right.
So it's like I'm giving you $1 to take on all this
Yeah.
fucking debt.
Right.
And that's why the wife, when he told his wife about it,
Yeah.
remember Ross Braun? She's like, put a fucking force field around our house.
Yeah.
So when this whole thing goes tits up,
Right. We don't lose the house.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, because I think there was some like maybe, and we're just speculating here. There was some financial exposure, right? You're exposing yourself to debt
Yeah.
because Honda wanted to get this off their books and onto somebody else's books.
Right.
This whale, this white whale, this white elephant.
Right. But like Honda was pretty like they were, you know, I think they were devastated around it. They talk about how one of the head guys at Honda was crying in a meeting with Braun. Like I'm devastated that we have to end this.
And the guy had the coin. The guy had the pound.
Yes, and he had the literal pound. He had the literal pound that was ultimately done because they had a month to find a new buyer. Basically, Braun and Nick Fry had like a month to be like, just give us a month and like let's not just close the doors on this. Like we want to keep this thing going. And from Braun's perspective, it's like he leaves Ferrari in the most like dominant era, goes to this other team, and then all of a sudden they're closing the doors, and he's like, "Well, fuck!" Like, so he has to keep it's on them to keep the fucking the lights on.
It's crazy. It's like we'll find a new buyer. Oh wait, we found one. Me.
Yeah, right. But then also there's this great audio where they play like that. You hear Braun telling the team, like, so Honda is they're pulling out of F1. And then you hear just like some, nameless, faceless engineer just go, fucking hell. You just hear them like, oh, fuck, mate. This fucking sucks.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Jensen Button's agent and Barrichello's agent are like calling the other teams, trying to figure out if they can get another seat for them. Christian Horner's in this documentary giving just more brilliant sound bites just because it's what he does.
Yeah.
He says, like, Jensen's agent's calling me, asking if we have a seat. And I say, mate, it's 10 past midnight. Cinderella's gone. I was like, fuck, dude. Why is Christian Horner so good at this?
My God. He's a professional. He could do this professionally.
And this is what this is like the brilliance of this doc. So it's like Keanu, it's like after Braun says like people wanted money from Honda to take it over. Honda knew, this is what Braun says, and he's talking to Keanu Reeves. He goes, Honda knew there was no one who would make that sort of commitment. And then Keanu goes, but there was. There was someone who was going to take over the company, right? I wrote down it's like a kid trying to make your life into a movie. Like you hear like it's like but then you left. Yeah, then you killed it, right?
But I loved it, man. Usually instead of him, you have like some narrator.
Right. No, it couldn't have been anyone other than Keanu Reeves.
He was so earnest. I loved it.
Yeah. We got to get him on the pod. Yeah. So then it's just chaos. So then it's chaos. Like they have this brilliant idea, like the double diffuser. That could be fucking sick if we got the double diffuser, but they don't have. It's like they buy Honda for $1. Yeah, the Honda exec has the literal pound with him. They show it in the doc, and then they're like on this mad dash to figure out how they're gonna like keep. They don't have an engine. Honda's like, we're not giving you an engine. Like we're not doing shit. Like it's yours. It's not our problem anymore. And they had to convince Mercedes to give them an engine. Mercedes at the time had an exclusive deal with McLaren. Yeah. And this is kind of where the FOTA comes into play. That essentially, like the team, FOTA, which was the Formula One Teams Association. Which, does that still exist? Is that real still or no?
I think the teams still have a union type of setup. I don't know if it's called FOTA.
No, it dissolved in 2014.
Okay.
It formated. So the formation was in 2008, and then it was done in 2014. I mean, that was a crazy year for the formation of it. And so essentially, the teams all had to like kind of band together. I didn't know this either. This was fascinating. The teams had to like come together to basically like make Brawn happen.
Do you think they regretted that?
Well, that was an amazing turn, right? They're like the teams all have this meeting.
This is their good deed for the day, and then
Yes.
they get fucked by him.
Yes.
And I think maybe that speaks to like, oh, don't trust that baby-faced fucking assassin.
Right.
Because he's like, help me, I'm just trying to keep these guys' jobs,
Right.
He's got kids, and now I'm literally killing you guys.
Yeah, that was amazing. and no one like said it better than Christian Horner, who was like, this guy, we were, a month ago we were helping this guy, we were saving him, and now he's kicking our ass. It was so good. Yeah, so like FOTA has to like come together, like, McLaren has to basically say like, okay, you guys can use a Mercedes engine, like, fine. I know we have an exclusive deal with Mercedes, but we'll let it go for you guys to have the Mercedes engine.
But it would be like Gunther Steiner being like, let Gunther use a Mercedes engine. What's the harm?
Right. But it's kind of not like if Gunther, because it would be more like if fucking Adrian Newey was the team principal of Haas.
That's true.
Because like Braun was like,
Braun had a track record.
Had a crazy track record, like an Adrian Newey type of track record. So like if Adrian Newey took over Haas and then like was asking the guys like, come on guys, just give me a Ferrari engine. Like,
Brian, but this was in the budget, like no budget.
Right.
So it's like Adrian Newey taking over Haas with no budget where teams were spending $400 million.
Right, with no budget cap. Where Haas still had no budget and the teams had no budget cap.
Yes. Exactly. You'd still like, I mean, how much could Adrian do? Apparently a lot.
Yeah, apparently
a lot.
Especially in like a reg change, like in the first year of a reg change.
No, here's what it was. I think what you see is that they had one bullet.
Yes.
They had one car that they could build, and
yes.
they had one draft.
Right.
They had the money to build one car, and they built the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And then everybody else had the money to copy them.
Right.
And
improve and improve.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get the deal with Mercedes. Mercedes like, we'll let you have the engine, and then for 6 days. Working 24 hours on the car for 6 days, 3 shifts, working like probably shifts of 8 hours at a time for 24 hours on the car. They basically had to like retrofit a Mercedes engine onto the chassis of the Brawn.
Brian, did you take a crazy amount of notes?
Just for episode 1. Because this was all the kind of craziness. Then it's more just like vibe.
Okay,
but
got you.
Yeah.
Because I'm like really impressed by your memory.
It's not memory. So they for 6 days they're working on the car.
I want to interject one thing. There was a great moment, Brian.
Yeah.
Where they thought about a Ferrari engine. I think Andrew Shovlin, who was great. Andrew Shovlin. It's great because you hear these names and now you get to meet these guys.
Right.
Andrew Shovlin was like, I think it was Andrew Shovlin who was like, you can't get a Ferrari engine because once you get close to a Ferrari, if you're a Ferrari customer, once you get close to Ferrari, the engine stops going so well. He said that. You remember that?
Yeah.
He just basically accused Ferrari of cheating.
Right.
Of being a shitty
a foul play
provider.
Yeah.
A shitty engine provider.
Right.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, you meet all, like, James Vowles. James Vowles was, like, the head strategist for Braun. You meet all these guys that kind of would later kind of, like, make Toto Wolff look really smart. And, they basically get the car ready, and then it's like testing is happening, and they're not there. And they're, like, looking at the times, and they're running their sims, and they're like, our sims are saying we're going to be, like, 2 seconds faster than all these fucking guys. Can you imagine being there, like, reading the telemetry and being like, where are we? Your car's not even there because you're so behind the 8 ball. And you're looking and you're like, I think we're going to be faster than everybody. Like, I've run the numbers. Like, they do in movies all the time where, like, there's always like, I'm like, check the numbers, Johnson. Yeah, and he's like, I've checked it 10 times. Run it again. Yeah. So Braun looks like they're going to be faster.
They have footage of that sexy car on the wind tunnel. So cool.
Yeah. I love the little toy cars in the wind tunnels.
Yeah.
The little, like, clay little toy cars.
But honestly, the opposite happened.
Right.
With Mercedes, because they were like,
right,
this new zero side pod, we're going to be so fast.
Yeah.
The numbers are telling us that we're going to be so
8
fast.
seconds faster than everyone else, guys. Yeah. Right.
Because it's all about wind tunnel correlation.
Yeah.
You hope that what the wind tunnel is telling you is going to
is accurate. Right.
So they're like, according to the wind tunnel, like, we're going to be faster than everybody. And it was right in this case.
Yeah.
Because Ross Braun was running the team.
Right. Well, they go to the first testing that they're actually able to go to, and they are faster than everyone.
I love when Jensen was like, there's some understeer. And it's like, well, you set the fastest time. So
yeah.
Jensen always complaining of understeer.
Jensen's an interesting case study. He's a really interesting guy.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a
We'll get to him. But they're faster than everyone. But then everyone's kind of like justifying it. They're like, it's fucking bullshit. It's one lap. It's kind of the Haas
It's a
effect.
glory run.
It's a glory run. They probably have no fuel in the car. They're just trying to get sponsors because the car didn't have any
Getting
sponsors.
their dick real chubbed up.
Yeah.
In the shower, being like, isn't it cold out?
Yeah,
it's so cold.
They're taking a picture. They're sending dick pics, and they're just like, all the lighting is right. The angle's like crazy. They're pushing back their skin. They're like, look how big our dick is. That's what everyone thinks they're doing. That's what everyone thinks they're doing.
Yeah.
And they wind up getting a sponsor in Virgin and Richard Branson, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
Richard Branson's fucking ridiculous. Him walking in with like the girls on his arm.
Can I just say something? While they're killing it, there's so many races that they're killing that they have like no sponsors.
I know.
So how hard is this?
I know.
I didn't get it.
It's crazy. Like, they dominate the first half of the 2009 season. They're like, okay, I don't know, guys. Like, we can't find anyone to put their logo on our car. It's like,
they look
what?
like Ricky Bobby at the end of the movie, where there's like, where it's just the sponsor is me.
ME. What company's ME? Anyway, yeah, Richard Branson comes in.
It's like a satire how few sponsors they had.
Yeah. No, it really is like a joke. Richard Branson comes in. He's like, he's not the title sponsor, but then like in some interview, they're like, "What do you think of the Braun car?" And he goes, "Don't you mean the Virgin Braun car?" You know, yes, that's right, Virgin Racing Braun car. That's right. Anyway, they get pole. Then so the season starts. It's like they get pole in Melbourne, and Button wins in Melbourne. And it's, you know, it's like they're off to the fucking races. This team that no one thought anything of, all of a sudden is dominating. They win the first race of the year.
Barrichello bottles it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the story of the season. It's like when the car was good,
Yes.
Jensen was on it, and when the
Right.
car was not good, Ruben
Yeah.
started to turn it on. But
Yeah.
Jensen kind of made hay while the sun was shining.
Right. And there's this great they he almost loses the first race because or maybe the second race because the fuel guy, like they had never given fuel to an F1 car before. So it's like this is how shoestring the budget was, that like they just had a guy who had never been a fuel guy before putting fuel into the cars.
And one guy had retired.
Right, to become a plumber.
He had left the business.
Yes. The fuel guy who was on Honda leaves the business to become a plumber, and then after like the first race or whatever, they call him and they're like, "Hey, could you like work weekends?" And he literally would just fly to the races for the weekends only, just to be the fuel guy. And then the rest of the time, he was like, "I'm trying to make my way as I'm trying to build my business."
This guy's just laying pipe
as a plumber in fucking North England.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that's the shoestring budget that they were on. They had to fire half of the staff after Melbourne.
Crazy.
Because it was like they had the whole staff that was like building the car in the lead up to the season, and then once they're in the season, they're like, we can't even really make adjustments really. So like you guys can go home, I guess.
They're like, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first episode. Is basically the oh my god, all this chaos, and now our car slaps.
Right.
Oh, but Luca is like, they fucking cheated.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This is like, it's like. They do all this stuff. They're nice to them. They let them join. They let them have the Mercedes engine, and then like they win the first race, and everyone's like, "Oh, whoa, what the fuck is going on?"
The Christmas spirit is gone. And then Christian goes, "Don't let this baby face fuck
Right.
fool you." He goes, he'd sell his grandmother.
Yes.
Said that. And Keanu goes, because the FIA said the car was fine. Keanu goes, FIA says car is fine, but everyone else says they're cheating. Luca goes, yes.
Yeah. Also, more Keanu like leading the witnesses. Like in the first race, Barrichello like he has a bad start and he like crashes on the first lap, and Barrichello says, "I did not have a good one. I did not have a good start." And Keanu goes, "And then you were a maniac." And then you drove like a maniac. And Barrichello's like, "Hey, what can I say?" It's like crashing in everybody. But they wind up finishing 1-2, right? Yeah, Button and Barrichello wind up finishing 1-2 in Melbourne. Anyway, so then they come back, and now it's like the guns are out, the knives are out. Like, the teams are like, all right, you're out. Like, we're going to kill you now.
Luca was like, I don't want to say they cheated, but essentially they cheated.
Yeah.
They cheated.
Yeah, but then and then now they're kind of off to the races. Like there's the second race in Malaysia. There's rain. This was crazy too. There's a ton of rain, and they wind up having to red flag the race. And basically, like and Button was leading, but James Vowles is like, water got in the steering wheel. So, like, they wouldn't have been able to start the car.
They left the computer outside in the rain.
They left the computer outside, and they didn't have time to soak it in rice because the computer. And they were basically the race had to be stopped because there was too much rain, and they won the race. But if they had continued the race, then Button wouldn't have been able to drive because the car.
Typical Jensen Button luck.
Yeah, yeah. That's a theme in this.
That's a theme of this, is how lucky Jensen was.
Jensen Button is lucky. But yeah, then it gets into the FIA. So then it's like they're winning, and now the teams are like, this is bullshit, and they file a formal complaint. Complaint.
Luca cannot believe that Ferrari is not competitive. It's impossible. There's the only way to explain why Ferrari isn't competitive is that Braun is cheating.
Yeah, that must be it. And they take up a complaint with the FIA, and so then like Braun has to go. They accuse them of cheating. They say that the double diffuser is illegal. Now there were 3 teams with the double diffuser, but Braun was the only one that was dominating, so Braun was kind of taking the lead on this. And yeah, like in the things, Braun says that like Ferrari, like, you know, accused him of some things. Like they took pot shots at him, took personal shots at his character, and he was like, well, you wouldn't do that if you had a strong case, now would you? And this is where the FIA and Bernie and Max Mosley and the politics of this whole season kind of like start to come into play. Is that the FIA basically says that the car is legal. And the teams are all, and to this day are like, yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, that was bullshit.
Christian said it was a kangaroo court.
Yeah. Max, and the argument is that Max Mosley, like wanted to show like his strength there and say like, I decide who wins. Like I can interpret the law however I want to. And I think it's nice and important to remember that like this is like what F1 is like people cheating and people going to court over it, and that's why like all the stuff the 2021 stuff, it's like that's what this thing has always been.
Politics.
It's always been politics. It's always been this little sandbox world of politics. People, interpreting the rules, doing creative accounting, skirting their way around certain things, and that's always been what it is. And honestly, I'm like, I was annoyed this year that there wasn't more of that. There wasn't more teams saying like Red Bull's doing something illegal.
Yep.
And maybe they're just totally within the books, but I'm like, come on, guys, like make a stink. Let's make a stink. Let's put this under.
Say Russia interfered. Like,
right.
Because Formula One echoes real life.
Right.
In this delightful, stupid way.
Right. Yeah, where like no one will let you have anything. There's like, oh, if I can get this in the press and have this be like kind of like like under question. But you know what it is really is that like Christian Horner's winning right now. So he would normally be the person leading the charge.
Yeah, no, he's the one that knows how to do that.
Yeah. the next best person, I guess, is like Zach Brown.
Zach Brown.
Like, I need Zach Brown to like come out swinging in 2024 and just start accusing people of like crazy shit. That's what I need. But anyway, Braun gets away with it. Then all the teams start putting in their double diffusers. But this is also a little bit where the FOTA of it all kind of comes into play as well. Which essentially was that at the time, Bernie Ecclestone was just just this absolutely predatory contract that everyone was on, where Bernie Ecclestone kept the majority of the profit of Formula One, and the teams got like a third.
They kept cutting to a pie.
Yeah, they keep
like
coming
a literal
to a pie.
Cake, like a cake.
A pie graphic. And so the teams were basically like all getting together. And this was funny because it was started in 2008. And what's also interesting about this is that it was started, one of the most vocal people was Flavio within FOTA. Seemed like he was kind of leading the charge on FOTA. Meanwhile,
it's interesting that you see that as an irony. But what I see as the biggest irony is that the biggest quote unquote FOTA type terrorists back in the day was Bernie.
Right.
Bernie started the original FOTA. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah,
but Bernie used to own a team.
FICA, I think it was.
Whatever. FICA, whatever the fuck. But
yeah.
Bernie was able to organize the teams.
Yes.
Against the FIA back in the day. And got them all organized.
Right.
And then
became the boss.
And then he was so good at organizing them that they were like, why don't you run things?
Yeah. And
then he was like, why do I even need a team anymore?
Right.
Running things is so much, like being in charge of you guys is so much more lucrative.
Right.
Than being a team. Like, he was like, I could be an actor or I could run the studio.
Well, it's the classic thing that happens. Like this is like the classic argument against unions too. Is that like it's like Jimmy Hoffa? It's like like that the heads of the unions get corrupt, and then they actually don't start serving the people that they're supposed to be serving. They just start serving themselves. Like that's like, you know, back in the day, like what would happen with like corrupt unions and union leaders. And that's what Bernie was. Now, all of a sudden,
what Bernie said, and now everything Bernie says needs to be taken with like the entire Dead Sea worth of salt. But
yeah,
but basically, he from his accounting of it is like, and if you read about guys who ran race teams at that time, like,
yeah,
those guys were so uninterested in finance and so uninterested in, they just wanted to race.
Right.
So they were so willing to give it to him and so short-sighted.
They had no like financial literacy. They were just kind of like, whatever, like we just want the cars to be, we just want to race. But I don't care about the bottom line.
Yeah. And I think he treated them, they were like children, and he took advantage of them.
That's what happened. That's 100% what happened. And then, by this time, the teams have like woken up to this, and they've recognized, this is not fair. Like what we're getting versus, you know, what this divvying up of the pie is not fair. I say that it's the irony of Flavio leading the charge is that like this entire 2009 season was like when all the Crashgate stuff was like coming out as well. Like this, they didn't touch this in the doc, but like Flavio was going to be like kicked. He was going to be kicked out of the sport like pretty soon after this, like while he's leading the charge against
while he's
F1.
Like being Bernie Sanders.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So they're starting to, they're in talks about how, you know, this cut is not fair. And if they don't adjust the cut that the teams get, they're going to leave and start their own series.
Oh, so brilliant. But Bernie has a brilliant counter move.
Yeah.
Which is holding this $12 million hostage.
Yes.
From Ross
the argument
Braun.
is that Braun is not Honda anymore. So what Honda is owed from the 2008 season is not actually Braun's property. That's not Braun's money.
Whose money is it? I wonder. Is it just Bernie's money now?
Right. Like seemingly you would give it to Honda if anyone.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just the company Honda.
Who is entitled to? I'm not like. So he's just like holding on to the money. Where does that money live now?
It's just sitting in Bernie's bank account. Is where it's sitting.
Exactly.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And we know, and we know from being in,
you know what that money's called? Actually, it's called leverage.
Yeah, it's called collateral. Yeah. Yeah. So Bernie's holding this like $12 million over Braun's head, being like, "No, we're not giving it to you." And the brilliance of Bernie is like knowing this.
And what they were saying is that Bernie was always so good at dividing these idiots,
right,
and keeping them, and that's what Bernie did so well when he fought the FIA. Was he kept them in lockstep?
Right.
You know, he used to be.
He kept the teams in lockstep.
Yeah, when he was on the other side.
Right.
Of the fence, he was the bank robber. Now he's the cop. Right.
Yes.
So he knows how to fuck them now. He's got to keep them divided.
Right.
He's literally knows the playbook.
Yeah, I love, dude. We got to get Bernie on the pod. There's no one who is more fucking red flags. There's no one who has more red flags in the Formula One. He's the most
than the guy who would take a bullet for Putin.
Yes, dude. He's so. I need a movie about him. I need to see the Bernie Ecclestone movie. I mean, he is a character study beyond. I mean, we did an episode.
I want to see Timothée Chalamet do him, not Wonka.
100%. Dude, he's unbelievable. He's like 5'4", like has this moppy hair.
He looks like a Muppet.
He looks like a cartoon. I'm so obsessed with him.
Well, what was brilliant is the twist is you think that Bernie's the evil genius this whole time, and then you find out that Ross Braun's an evil genius.
So the series of events goes that Bernie is going to divide and conquer the teams, and the first victim is Braun, because he has the best bargaining chip with Braun, where he basically sits down with Braun and he's like, "Listen, You guys, I will give you, this $12 million you've been calling me about every day? I'll give it to you. But you got to do one thing. You got to sign up for F1 for next year, for 2010.
You got to subscribe to the Patreon.
Got to subscribe to the Patreon. Exactly.
Of F1. For a year subscription. Yeah.
For a year subscription. Just a year. It's nothing crazy, just a year.
Yeah.
Anyway, they do that. And
then Nick Fry was like, it felt like I was signing a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
Like he literally called Bernie the devil.
Yeah. And then Braun is like driving over to a meeting with Fota at Braun's was like the headquarters for it too. They're like, we all meet at Braun. We're kind of neutral territory. We're Switzerland. And on the way there, they get a call that basically Bernie has spilled the beans to the other teams.
Bernie's like, ha ha ha, I got Braun, bitch. Like your shit is over.
Literally.
I drink your milkshake.
Yes, exactly.
I drink it up.
I drink it up.
He's fucking Daniel Plainview.
My straw goes all the way over to here, and I drink your milkshake to Braun.
I drink your Braun shake.
Yes. So he's
that's Bernie.
Bernie's that, and then Flavio is so apoplectic about this that he's like, I'm not.
He's like, we're doing the meeting in Renault.
In my house. You come to my house. I'm not going to your fucking house. You come to my fucking house. So they go, and they're like furious at them. They're screaming.
And Keanu goes, and they were definitely like, what the fuck? And then Nick Fry, Nick Fry was like, they were not pleased. No.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. The American versus British breakdown of what all this shit is. Yeah. But, and this is what you were alluding to before, the brilliance of this is that they put in a last second clause in the deal with the F1 for 2010 deal, which was that there was what would you call it? A gag order, order. That Bernie couldn't tell anyone. Confidentiality agreement. So Bernie, because he's just fucking...
he's such a little gremlin and can't help himself.
He can't fucking help himself. This greedy fuck calls the teams and just can't help but gloat. Because his ego, he's just like, suck my fucking dick, like full Cartman.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, calf, fuck you, calf. And so the deal is null and void.
Yeah, I wonder if he still gets the damages of the money.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder if that's so. And then Bernie's so scandalized. He's like, yeah. I mean, the fact that they did that is just disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you believe?
He goes, I don't contracts. I don't look at contracts. I'm a man of my word. I'm like, you are the most devious guy.
Yeah.
Of all time. Although I do agree what he says. I do agree with what he said where he's like, if you make a deal with someone and then you got to go back and look at the contract to see how you can fuck them, then you've signed a bad deal.
Right.
Which I think is true.
That is true.
But
anyway, technically he voided the contract, and yeah, that was the most fascinating. I mean, that part was so fucking thrilling. Underneath, because also think about it from the team's perspective. It's like we helped Braun survive. We gave them floaties while they're drowning. Then they start. Then they start
drowning us.
Then they start drowning us because they're like, our cars are better than yours. Suck my fucking dick. Then we sue them. They win the court case, so they continue to dominate. And then
we're in a labor dispute,
right? And then they backstab us. And they go behind our backs and backstab us.
But then turns out they didn't backstab us. They were with us the whole time.
Well, not really. They were only with us because someone else fucked up. But anyway, yes, they were ultimately with us. But yeah, just a crazy. I mean, the amount of bridges, babe. The amount of bridges that were burned. Lots of bridges burned. So anyway, the whole thing kind of becomes a nothing burger.
I do want to say that Bernie did say one amazing thing.
Yeah.
The problem is what they were short of.
Yes.
They didn't have any balls.
Yes. He also said, if you're going to threaten me with a gun, you better make sure you have bullets. So basically, Bernie was saying, like, they were threatening to leave, but they were never going to leave.
Yeah.
And that was all. They were just saying they weren't really prepared. They didn't have the fucking gumption to really get the fuck out. So he didn't really take their threats seriously the whole time, is what Bernie's saying.
And Luca did, and another great soundbite is when Luca goes, Max Mosley, dictator.
Yes. He goes, I did not. Also, when after the trial, the FIA meetings where they were suing them, basically, he says, like, we did not have a problem with the man who make the part. We have a problem with the referee. The referee is corrupt. It's just fucking amazing. Yeah,
cast you in Ferrari, Brian.
Ultimately, the F1 gives the teams a bigger cut of the pie. The teams don't defect. I loved the soundbite of the press conference where, like, basically Max Mosley sits down and he's like, so the long and the short of it is the teams aren't leaving. We've worked it out. That's what you need to know.
I will be gone. I will be leaving. Everybody hates me.
Yeah, but there's something so honestly like refreshing about, when you listen to a press conference sometimes and you're just like, wait, what actually happened? What's happening? Because they just like talk in this very kind of like lawyeristic way where you don't even know what the fuck is going on.
He was very clear.
Yeah.
And direct. But it was like, what was that relationship between him and Bernie? Christian called them Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Just literally highway robbers.
Right.
Highway robbing best friends is basically what Christian Horner
who are hot as fuck too. Like, no one could be kind of further from Butch Cassidy. It's more like, no one could be further from that than the two of those guys.
One of them is a gremlin. The other's dad was the Nazi party leader of England.
Yeah.
Basically. He's a British fascist.
Yeah. Fucking A. Yeah, so that's what happened there. And then getting back to the season, getting back to Braun's season, the kind of the long and the over thing is that for the first, I think, how many of the first 7 races? I think Button won 6 of the first 7 races.
Really?
They just had the edge. Button won, let's see, winning driver. Yeah, Button won in Australia. He won in Malaysia. He lost in China. Vettel won in China. I think there was rain in China.
They had trouble when it wasn't hot.
Right.
They had a temperature problem.
Yeah, Button won in Bahrain. He won in Spain, and he won in Monaco, and he won in Turkey. So he wins 6 of the first 7. And they're also like, he's like, I'm just on top of the world. You see his dad's there. And then he's like, I just couldn't believe my luck. And then Keanu Reeves is like, and that was the last race that Jensen would win in the 2009 season. And it's like, boom, next episode. So, and then it kind of gets into when all the teams start catching up. Because, they had the edge, but then all the teams started putting in their own double diffusers.
When did we get into Rubens and like that whole fuck?
Well, that's also when that starts happening too, because Rubens is like, during this whole winning segment, Rubens is like, basically accusing the team of cheating and accusing the team of favoring Jensen. And
Bernie was like, who said they had the same car?
Yeah.
And he's like, and then Keanu was like, They barely had enough. He's like, they couldn't make 2 separate parts. What are you talking about? They were so poor. And he's like, that's just it. They could only afford to make 1 good car.
Right. Yeah. Which is like, I don't even think that's fucking true. Is it? Because the rest of the season, fucking Rubens Barrichello kind of starts to kind of stick his dick back in.
There's moments where Rubens like screws Jensen.
Right. No, they're actively fighting each other.
Well, they asked Rubens to let him through, and he's holding him up, and he doesn't let him through. And The Rubens could have cost him that title.
Well, so I want to get into the vibe of those two guys because it was really interesting watching this documentary because I feel like Jensen and Rubens are like on the two sides of like the competitor coin. Jensen seems like a nice, like well-adjusted guy who like had a passion for motorsport and was definitely a competitor, but you know, also saw the value in living like a full balanced life. And Rubens Barrichello seems like a one-track minded psycho who like cares about one thing and one thing only.
Yes.
And it's funny to hear them talk about this time because Jensen Button has this kind of air of like, oh yeah, I got really mad about that. Like, you know, that was a long time ago, you know. Yeah, randomly I got upset when I was in Brazil and this comedian was following me around with a ladder, wishing me bad luck as I walked underneath it. And I got really mad when they did that. But, you know, just let bygones be bygones. And Barrichello's like, no, I'm still mad about everything that happened that season. I'm still pissed.
Well, here's the question. Would Jensen still be bitter if the shoe was on the other foot?
I think that I think it goes to like who they are as people. I think that obviously Jensen, like, it's easy to look back and laugh when you're the winner. But I also think that like Jensen has a vibe of like a well-adjusted kind of guy. His relationship with his father seems really, you know,
relatively normal.
Relatively
as
normal.
As it's going to be.
Exactly. They get into that. Yeah, that's an interesting kind of thing. I think we could talk about them now. Like his dad, you know, they get into their stories.
This was the best part of the whole documentary.
Yeah.
But the best part of me, can I say the best part for me is the whole documentary was when he talks about how he got into karting because of his dad. In Rallycross, his dad gets him a kart. Classic story. You see adorable Oliver Twist looking Jensen with the kart.
Yeah.
And he's doing the stuff with his dad, and he's doing well. And he says he's in the back seat.
Yeah.
He goes, "My dad thinks I'm asleep."
Mm-hmm.
And I hear my dad, and he's talking about how supportive his dad was. But he goes, "My dad thought I was asleep." I hear him tell my stepmom, his partner. I hear him go, "I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's got it." And that I felt that because I remember when I was a kid. I overheard my parents. They didn't know that I was there.
Yeah.
And my mom said that she was proud of my sister and she wasn't proud of me. And I remember that was like so affecting.
Yeah.
And then I didn't pretend that I didn't hear it. I said, "What did you say?" And she turned around and she was like, "Oh, well, yeah." Like she didn't like walk it back. Anyway, but
that's what Max. That's what Jos Verstappen would have done. Well, no, Max always says that. He goes, "No, my." They're like, "Did your dad believe in you?" And he goes, "No, my dad told me I was going to be a gas station
truck driver.
attendant, a truck driver."
Yeah, exactly.
My dad told me that I wasn't shit.
But my favorite part about that, was then they cut to Anthony Hamilton, like way late in the story.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Hamilton was just like. That was a tactic. Oh yeah. I did that move. Classic dad move.
Yeah.
And now we're getting ahead of ourselves. But there was a moment later where like Jensen's doubting himself. Jensen's having the dark night of the soul before the last race where he's going to win.
Yes.
And Jensen talks about how his dad buys him that beer.
Yes.
He's like, "I don't drink before a race," but my dad's like, "You need a beer." Because he's lost every race. He's like blowing his lead, and it's like the second to last race in Brazil.
Yeah.
And he goes, he buys me a beer. And then Anthony Hamilton, he's like, "I have no idea what his father said, but he probably said this."
Yeah.
And he just guesses. He goes, "This is what I would have said to Lewis." He goes, "Remember in 1996 when you came from the back and you won the, remember when they said this? Remember they said this?" That's probably what he said. And then Jensen was like, and then he was right.
Yeah.
And then he was right. Like literally these two dads
are
running the same playbook.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That was the best part of the whole documentary for me.
Yeah.
Were you like blown away that Anthony was like, I don't know what Jensen's dad said. Probably said this, something like this.
Yeah.
And then Jensen's like, he told me to remember the races that they said I couldn't win. The times. I was like, Anthony just guessed what he said.
Yeah.
They literally both had the same how to build a world champion son playbook. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful. That was a beautiful like series of events because Jensen kind of was shit in the bed. Like he won those first 6 races. They start, and then it's about like holding on to this lead. And Barrichello starts like excelling because it's really he's going up against Barrichello and he's going up against Vettel.
Yeah.
It's Vettel and Barrichello.
And a little bit of Weber.
And a bit of
Weber had a few. Like, now the arm and the arm wrestling. Now the arm's coming over the table. And I'm like, how do him and Oscar talk to each other? This macho
I was thinking
guy.
the same thing.
The arm is coming over the table.
Yeah, it's like they are so cut from the opposite cloths. No, that's why you need Weber like negotiating for him. And he's just
Weber.
That's why you want to have like if you're you're just like a meek little like artist and then you have like a savage agent who's just like I'll destroy you if you fuck with my boy. Because Barrichello starts coming back and he wins he wins 2 of the races. He won in Monza and he won at the European Grand Prix, which I think was in where was the European Grand Prix? Oh, they did it in like a bunch of different places. Where was
I don't know, but they get into like his trauma of being Michael Schumacher's teammate.
Yes.
And did you see that footage of where he had to just hand Michael a win in Austria?
That was crazy.
I was like, oh my God, could you imagine what Twitter was like 20 years ago?
Dude, can you imagine what our fucking TikTok clip would have been after that race? Could you imagine what our
TikTok would have been when we were 3 years old? We were on TikTok.
Be like, and then he has to slow down on the final across the finish line to get this.
Thank God the internet did not exist.
Truly.
When Rubens Barrichello had to slow down. Like, you think Checo has a tough time?
Yeah.
Checo has never had to do that.
Right.
Slow down before the checker flag.
On the final, on the main straight.
That was crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, so Rubens had all this trauma coming from fucking being Schumacher's teammate, which we've now seen, with Bottas, we've seen with all the Red Bull boys, what it's like to be, second fiddle to one of these guys.
Yeah.
And now he's gone to this other team, and it's like, this is my fucking chance. So and then there's competition between like the different sides of the garage.
Oh, the Jock Clear is my favorite.
Yes.
So for those of you who haven't watched, there's this mechanic. This performance engineer.
Yeah.
Who is as eager to destroy Jensen Button. This Braun employee.
Yes.
Is as eager to destroy Jensen Button as Rubens is.
Yeah.
And basically he found a camber angle.
Yes.
And I guess you're supposed to share data.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say like, oh, if we do this camber, I think, and they didn't share it, and Rubens starts doing better.
Yeah.
And they interview Jacques, what was his name? Jock Clear?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And he was just like, he's this bald, dickish looking guy.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, it was awesome. Like, we really got in Jensen's head. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It would be like if Bono was like,
right.
Yeah, how could we destroy George Russell today?
Right.
How do we make sure that George Russell looks over both shoulders before he gets in the car?
Right. Well, there was it kind of came the most obvious moment of it was in Brazil, which is the penultimate race. And Barrichello, who's Brazilian, gets pole, and it's in the wet. And Button's like 14th, and
he's already out, so he's just listening on comms.
He's out, so he's just listening to the fucking like to the intercom. So it's like Button's out and Vettel's are both out, like in Q1 or Q2. And Barrichello gets pole, and then Jock Clear gets on the fucking intercom, and he goes, "Rubens Barrichello, you're on pole. Jenson Button in 14th. Sebastian Vettel in 15th. This is yours for the taking, baby." Like, just like, for the public, just like, suck our dicks, Jenson Button.
Yeah, Bono being like, suck our dicks, George.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unfucking believable.
Yeah.
And Jensen even said it. Jensen was like, if he's your performance engineer, it's amazing. But if he's not, he's a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's like, and Jensen's laughing through all this stuff, right? He's like, yeah, he did do that.
That was amazing when a guy on my team tried to sabotage me.
Right, yeah, that he's just like, he's let go of all bad. It kind of made me just be like, Jensen, like, come on. Like, keep a little bit of the energy. You can let it, you can let some of it go.
Why? Why are you being me in this situation, Brian?
Because I feel like, yeah, I am being.
He's not racing anymore. He doesn't need it. Oh, he is racing a little bit, but.
Well, I guess I'm like.
Does he need the edge anymore?
I guess it's interesting. Jensen feels like this guy who like was good and talented and was able to kind of like be in the right place at the right time and put the pieces together and win a championship. But like, he is not a champion. You know what I mean?
He's not a killer.
Right. And I just wanted to see a little bit more of the killer.
No, he was not a killer. He was not a, nobody had faith in him before this.
Right.
They didn't keep him. No, he went to McLaren.
We went to McLaren.
Lost to Lewis.
Yeah. Then he went to, he kind of got thumped by Lewis. But yeah, there's this great moment. Yeah, I think I just felt a little bit like, especially as Keanu's like, that made you mad, right? And he's like, it was interesting. I just wanted to like feel a little bit more. I wanted like the guy who was the killer, who was able to put it together in Brazil and have this great comeback race and win before even going to the final race and kind of heed his dad's advice and I just wanted to see and feel a little bit more of the dog. And I felt like, oh, the dog's gone, is how I felt watching the dog.
You wanted him to do the sense memory, tap into that space.
Yes.
For
to feel like this guy still has a bit of that.
Yeah.
I want to see a little bit of the dog in you. You know what I mean?
Well, we're talking about when you were a dog, so let's go back there.
Yeah, like come on, let's be a dog for a second, right? Let's fucking go there.
Like Michael Jordan being like, I took that personally.
Yeah. Now Michael Jordan's just a dog 24/7, 365 days a year. You know what I mean?
No, but I could.
You know
but if you asked me about a situation, like you could say, like you could ask me about a situation that I'm no longer angry about.
Yes,
but I can like get angry.
I could get in there. Yeah,
for the story. The story.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Jenson Button, who's also fucking. If Drive to Survive was around when Jenson Button was rolling, then we know that he's Jenny's numero uno.
And you know what? I would say I don't think he's that bitch, and everyone would have hate. He would be my Carlos Sainz probably.
Yeah. He would have been.
I probably would have said a little Lando Norris too. I don't know. Actually, no, Lando's better than he is probably.
Yeah, Lando's better than he is, but I think that like a little bit of that dog, like that's the question we ask of some of these guys, like, do you have the dog in you? And Rubens, it feels like he had the dog in him, but then also like I don't know what got in the way of him. I think like he was so fucked up mentally from Schumacher that like he let his emotions get the best of him for the first half of the season.
It also seems like the car suited Jensen better in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it suited Rubens better at the end, and that's where the main points were scored.
Right at the top of the season.
It seems like everyone. If you know one thing about Jenson Button is that he's smooth. Smooth.
Right. Yeah, that's what they were saying. That when it was cold, he couldn't drive the car like aggressive enough to get the temperature in the tires.
Whereas Rubens probably more aggressive on the top. Like he's probably harder on his tires.
Yeah.
But he can get the temperature in him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That is kind of what it ultimately came about. But there was this great thing with Rubens where Rubens is Brazilian. So is Felipe Massa, who was in this, and this is the year where the spring came off of Rubens' car.
Yeah.
And hit
I
Massa.
didn't know it came off
Massa
of Rubens' car. And
Yeah.
They were both Brazilian and they had that connection.
And they were like good friends.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Oh, how amazing were they talking about, like, just to go back a little bit, talking about the pressure of being a Brazilian driver.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And Massa being like, if you're second, you're nothing in Brazil.
Right. Yeah.
To just admit that.
Right.
Because that's Massa essentially and Rubens.
Yes.
They're both like they're both Brazilian, that like second fiddle Brazilians.
Yes. Like, and not even second fit, like second play, like really good.
Yeah, second in the drivers' championship,
but second fiddle to all.
I mean,
Brazil.
and Massa got closer. Massa got closer than Massa was like 1 or 2 points that year.
He got second to Lewis by like 1 point.
Yeah, exactly.
They thought that he won in Brazil.
Yeah.
They thought his entire family was cheering and overjoyed in the garage in fucking Brazil in 2008. Yeah. No, that was a fascinating part of it.
When he hands him the helmet.
Yes.
And he goes, "It still has the blood on it."
Yeah, Massa still has his helmet where he almost died, and she shows it to Keanu, and he's like, "Still's got blood in there,
like
dude."
Holding the bloody helmet.
Yeah.
So made me so happy.
Yeah, it was so sick.
Any other actor might have been like, "Ooh."
Yeah. No, yeah.
But Keanu gripped it harder.
He's like, "Can I smell it? What's it smell like?" But then Rubens, I think, won maybe like the next race, and he had Massa on his helmet. He had a
Yeah, it was the only race that he commemorated him on his helmet.
Yeah, he commemorated him, and he won that race. So yeah, like Rubens definitely is like still clearly like is that dog. He's still haunted and still walks around with all that weight. But he's also, he was saying like, he and Jensen really were friends off the track. And ultimately Jensen, he's starting in 14th or 15th in Brazil. He winds up making his way, doing like a hell of a drive, makes his way up to 5th. Barrichello, who was starting in first, gets overtaken by Hamilton, but he gets a puncture, so he knows that it's over. It was the second to the last race anyway, so it was already kind of a long shot that he was going to be able to win. But he does. Jensen Button wins the championship. They win the Constructors, made a ton of overtakes.
When he had to get past Grosjean.
Yeah.
Because one of them got hit by Grosjean.
Yeah, Button did.
Yeah, and I was like, and I literally wrote, "Tale as old as time."
I know. And Grosjean's so young, he's so like baby faced, and you're like, oh, you've been a hazard from day dot, darling. Yeah. And a hazard from day dot. Yeah, he wins the race. He's hugging. He's there with his dad, who gave him that pep talk, and he said that his dad was like crying, and he didn't want anyone to see. I said, like a true Brit, Brit. And they win the Constructors. They win, and Barrichello comes up to him, and he's hugging him after that race, and they are able to kind of bury the hatchet.
I want to remind you that that some of these interviews, for those of you who didn't watch, they're interviewing Barrichello like on the Brazil GP track, on Interlagos, like they're sitting in the middle of the track, Like they make some wild choices.
They do make some wild choices. Well, I think Keanu probably went to some of the races. He just was like, oh, and Barrichello obviously is going to be at Brazil every year. Barrichello said that his grandmother lived off of turn 1.
Really?
Yeah, he said that he was like, my grandmother's house was on the other side of turn 1.
Right.
So he's like that. It goes deep. And yeah, that's really kind of that's the story. This team.
And then, but wait, we gotta end with we're back at the Japanese executive of Honda.
Yes.
With the coin.
Yeah.
And he's like, basically, Keanu's like, so how do you feel about this? Like, you must basically feel like a schmuck, right?
Right.
Yeah. But he had like a lot of equanimity about it, the executive. He goes,
Yeah, he was like, we made the right choice. There was no other choice at the time. And yeah, and then they're like, then Mercedes buys them. They're like, Mercedes going to buy us, and then they just kind of skip over, like, they show where everyone wound up, and they're like, much of the Braun GB team made up the Mercedes staff that has won all these championships.
Wait, can I ask you a question, Brian? I can't put my finger on it. There's somebody like missing, like just not in this documentary at all. Hasn't been mentioned. Hasn't been asked.
Yeah, all
about.
These Mercedes guys are in there. James Fowles,
Andrew
Shovlin, all these guys, and they're doing a bunch of interviews in the Mercedes factory.
Yes,
you see the Mercedes, the bluest Mercedes in the fucking back.
There's the director of communications who looks like she's still there.
Right. Yep. Well, this is the story, right? It's like
I think they fucking hate each other. Those two guys.
They hate each other. Braun hates Toto.
I think Braun was like, "You want to do Braun GP?" Toto Wolff, not involved.
Yeah.
And guess what? He wasn't involved.
He wasn't involved. He was not
involved.
He was not involved. No, Mercedes is the house that Braun built. That is what happened.
I think Toto would argue, well, he did run the team. He did run Mercedes from 2010 through 13, but
yes.
I think culturally he probably had trouble integrating everything.
Yeah.
Braun was his team, and then Mercedes comes in with their ideas and their people and their culture, and
Yeah. And Braun was in the development of the car at the start of the before the start of the turbo hybrid era. Like, he helped develop that car, which was ultimately going to be the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
He could not be the more anti-Toto. Braun is the opposite of Toto in every way. The only thing they have in common is that they're tall. But Toto is tall and hot as fuck. Braun is like meek and shy and very Otmar-ish. Very he's no PR vibe. He's just like a genius who is like, let me just one-track minded kind of guy. And then Toto is like a mover and a shaker and like a business, business acumen kind of, social dynamic guy.
I think we might be underestimating Braun. I think the way he handled that managerial buyout was pretty savvy.
Yeah, but I think he had like Nick Fry with him, like lockstep every step of the way with that. I think that he's in there, but and everyone says that he comes across as this, but he's as competitive. He's definitely competitive, but he's like, I think. Like Nick Fry was the one trying to get sponsors for every, it's like that was on him getting the new Terminator movie to sponsor the car for one race
Genesis.
weekend. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, Braun was selling weekly sponsors. Every week there were new sponsors for the car because they couldn't get a year.
I just don't understand how it was that hard.
I think it's a lot of money.
What? They wanted a lot of money.
I think it costs a lot of money, and it's a big commitment. And if you're coming into things late in the game, Virgin was so smart.
You're winning,
but you have to have an ethos that kind of, that's why Richard Branson was on board with it, because he liked the ethos of the disrupting team. You need ad partners that are going to be in lockstep with that story.
What was so interesting, when they got Petronas, when they went to Malaysia, and they got Petronas involved, they were like, well, Petronas is interested, but not in Braun. Only if Mercedes gets involved.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what? I mean, this team slaps. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I guess Petronas Braun Petronas doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, because it's, teams, it's a bunch of reasons that people it's also the infrastructure of the larger thing. Mercedes, if you're just a dinky little team, then what do you have in terms of infrastructure? Like, you know, like Mercedes is far reaching. It's so much further than just the team.
Right.
That's like the decisions.
But
that
I
these
guess
business
if
people make.
I started, let's say you and I started a F1 team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's say we raised the money.
Yeah.
We Andretti'd it.
Right.
Even if we started winning,
I still think it would be hard to get like establishment brands to be on board. You'd have to get brands that were like trying to disrupt, like trying to get in for cheap. I still think like, because it's like
winning just isn't enough.
Because it also has to look good for them on their, like, you know, it's like, you know, Petronas Mercedes, even if Mercedes is losing, is better than like Petronas Haas. You know? Petronas red flags. There's just I don't think it makes that much sense, but I think that like these are the calculations that like people and businesses make.
Because it was so depressing. They were like, "Yeah, we're interested if Mercedes buys you out."
Yeah. It's crazy.
I was like, what more does this fucking guy have to do?
Truly,
he pulled a rabbit out of his ass.
I know.
And they're like, "Yeah, let Mercedes buy you guys, and then we'll be interested."
I know. Yeah. No, it's a great doc. You should check it out.
5 stars out of 4, honestly.
Yeah. All the stuff with the politics of the time, the financial stuff, it all blended into a great thing. And I think that's what we got for you today, Venkas.
Yeah, thanks so much. Just going to be a great new year, guys. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Really excited to keep this chugging along.
Keep this car on the grid, baby. Join the Patreon. We love you. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, Venkas.
Goodbye, Vancas.